Hello, and welcome back to the Pocket Network Podcast, a podcast for real estate professionals like you to innovate your world. I'm your host, Margarita Petrosian, and each week I sit down with industry professionals to talk about hot topics, common challenges, and so much more. This week, I'm here with Daniel Shalvarjan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I know you have two twins at home, plus a really busy schedule with work. So thank you for penciling in time for us.
Yeah, of course. No problem.
How are your twins?
They are great. They're 15 months old, so that's like 30 months of parenting already. No, they're great. They're identical twin girls, so they're full of, energy, charm. They figure out stuff really quickly, like talking and all that. So they're already like babbling to us, which is kind of scary. That's
so funny.
Yeah.
Is it because they're listening to dad with the clients on the phone all day?
No. So that's actually a problem that we have right now because I work at home a lot.
Yeah.
I still go to the office regularly, but my home office is right next to their bedroom. So when they take their second or even their first nap of the day, I have to leave and like go for like a walk outside so I can call people. But it's hard. It's hard balancing out being around and still being available for clients because this isn't like another job where 5 o'clock, that's it, I'm done. It's the opposite. 5 o'clock comes around, now clients are available and they want to go see houses.
Yeah, it's 7:30 and you've already taken 2 calls from clients. So I can see how busy you get.
And I've already told a few that I can't call them back until like 9 o'clock. So you just span it out, but you figure it out after a while.
So how do you have like some kind of strategy or approach to manage how you or when you pick up the calls and when you don't? Because I know with technology and just how digital everything is, even though it's great for the kids to learn, you also don't want them to see you working 24/7.
That's a great point. So I do. I try to spend mornings with them when I can. So they usually get up at like 6:37. Now, sometimes maybe 7:38, depending on how hard they were going the night before in terms of like playing and then going to sleep.
Yeah.
But usually I spend mornings with them because I'm working from home a lot. I get to like hop in every now and again when I have like a 15-20 minute break and just play with them. But then most of the nights I'm there for like bedtime, maybe once or twice a week. I won't make it for bedtime, but it's one of those things where it's not just about like your kids. It's every aspect of your life. This job, most people tell you that you get to create your own schedule, but what they don't realize is that you're just going to work all the time.
Yeah.
Because you get used to working and somebody calls and says, can I see something an hour from now, 30 minutes from now, or, tomorrow at this time, but you already have an obligation. The trick that I've learned, which is really strange to say, you just have to defend your schedule. You set your schedule. These are the hours where I prospect for clients. These are the hours where I show houses, even though that one is a little bit more fluid because if you have a house where they have a baby and 2 dogs, for argument's sake, and they say that we can only show the house Tuesdays between 12 and 4, it doesn't matter if you prospect at that time. You have to make that work.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it's a great way to keep your sanity because if you don't, there's no set schedule in this job. So it's very easy to just fall into a cycle of working and working and working and working. And you're like, if I just do more work, I'll produce a better product, but that's not always the case.
Yeah. And eventually you do also get burnt out. So then you're not producing anything good.
Oh, yeah.
And with this industry, it's just so competitive. Talking to real estate agents, I hear a lot of them say, if I don't pick up the call, someone else will. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you have clients that don't know you. So if it's a client that knows you, they'll understand whether it's, I want to make bedtime today, or I have another client, they'll understand, they'll work around your schedule because they trust you. But then when it's a prospective client and they call, you're not available. So how do you deal with prospective clients calling at a time that's not meant for phone calls?
That's a great question. So most of the people that know me know that I'm one of those people where it's not difficult to get a hold of me because I'm always working. It's 99% of the time if I get a call and I can't answer, they either get I'm going to call you right back, and then I call them however many minutes I say I'm going to call them. Yeah. Sometimes more. They know who they are. Mm-hmm. But usually I'll pick up, hey, is this an emergency? No, blah, blah, blah. And I call them back. For prospective clients that I don't know, anytime I'm in an appointment, as long as it's not a listing appointment, if it's like an inspection, a property tour or something, I'll actually take the call and then I'll tell them, hey, I'm in an inspection right now. Hey, I'm showing a property right now. I'd love to connect with you. Can I call you back at this time? Most people are so fearful of not taking that call or missing the call or asking somebody, can I call you later? They'll work with somebody else, that they don't realize that at the end of the day, you're working with people. Most people understand that, you know, yeah, you can call me back later. I understand that you're busy. I don't want to work with somebody that's not busy. If you're not busy, you're probably not busy for a reason. Exactly. Why are you not busy?
Why don't other people trust you?
Yeah, yeah. And then there's the other thing of, if you don't defend your availability, your calendar. A guy I used to work with, Tom Barsagan, will always tell me, defend your calendar like it's your castle. Best advice he gave me, because it's one of those things where if you don't do that, the client won't either. And the client won't take you seriously if you don't show them that, you know, you are truly a professional. Yeah. And if you have appointments that you've set aside, they're going to want to know that for their appointments, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to set aside time where you're only going to focus on them. If you just half-ass all of them, people are going to dip in and out. They're going to say, why did I pay this person the amount? They didn't deserve it. So you have to like earn your keep. But it's not hard. It's like the better part of the job. It's how you enjoy working with people that you actually like. So you don't want to work with people that are completely different from your compassion for people, your understanding for people. You want to assume that you're working with like-minded people that, you know, you're going to respect your client's time. When they say, hey, I'm at work, I can't take this call to go over that inspection report. Can we talk after I'm out of work? It's the same thing. Yeah. Hey, I'm at this appraisal meeting. I can't take this call. Can I call you after?
And it also doesn't make sense. I've had people that I've worked with where we're in the middle of something, and sure, it might not be the most important thing in your career, but we're just trying to get this done, and you keep taking calls on the side. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so you just wasted an hour of my time that I could have spent with another client. It seems like I'm not important. What we're doing is not important. And also we're just extending something that could be really simple and quick. So it completely makes sense, like you said, to defend your calendar or to make sure that you're not always picking up the phone.
Yeah, it's seriously like the best way I could describe it. It's like a first date. It's if you're on a first date and somebody says, hey, my mom is calling me. Hey, there's this thing that's calling and I have to pick it up. And they make it clear to you that it's something of importance, that's fine. But if every moment they're picking that up, that's something that you look at and you're like, maybe they're not serious. But for us, that's more common. And there's some agents that when they show a property, they'll go and they'll showcase the whole thing. I don't do that. I'm like, I'll let them browse around and then I'm doing my own thing because there's different things that I'm looking for.
Which is fine because they're not feeling like you're neglecting them. If they're just going out to see everything on their own, imagining their lives in there, then whatever you're doing on the side, you're not just going to stand there.
Well, you've been to open houses. So think about how annoying is it when you walk into every room and that agent pops their head and they're like, oh, isn't this kitchen beautiful? It's like, I have eyes. I can see that it's beautiful.
Or if you're trying to discuss something with a family member you're with, like, I don't see myself liking this. And they're like, yeah, but if you did this, like, I see your vision, but right now I just want to complain to my mom real quick.
I almost always tell clients that I'm not going to be the person that's going to show you the things that you're going to love. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, those things. The way that I don't have to describe, you know, a type of music that you like or a type of food that you like, something like that. You just innately, you know it. I'm going to be here so I can spot the things that you're not going to notice. Like when we go to a property and we notice that maybe the roof is not in the best condition, or we start noticing that there's patch marks on the ceilings. We start noticing things that maybe are indicating that there's going to be issues. Or you go to a property and everything seems fine and the clients love everything, but you present to them like, hey, you told me that mom and dad are going to live with you at some point. This is a 2-story house.
Yeah.
Is a flight of stairs going to be okay? Or, hey, you have a baby on the way. Is a second story okay with you? Things like that. So we're really there to figure out the issues. We're not there to figure out the beauty of something.
Yeah, and that's the difference between working for a paycheck and then working for your client.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone can see a house and say, love it, looks good. But then if I were to buy that house and then a month later, there's a leak in the roof or whatever, something happens that I have to deal with, I'm immediately going to think of, oh, why didn't he let me know? Why didn't my real estate agent let me know? Is he not experienced enough to have seen it? Or did he not care? Was he just making money off of me? So am I going to refer my family to use the same real estate agent? Or if I decide to sell this house now, am I going to go back to the same person?
Absolutely. And majority of like seasoned agents, it's different for new agents, but majority of seasoned agents really like nurturing the client even after the deal is closed to make sure things are fine, because that's your referral source.
Yeah.
We're not like a storefront where people walk in and they say, hey, I'm here to buy an iPhone. Most of the time, people are searching out for an agent, and yeah, they can go to like Zillow, they can go to Redfin, but a lot of these places, they, up until recently, wouldn't connect you to the listing agent, or they wouldn't connect you to the agent that you thought you were meeting with. It would be somebody else. Yeah. So there's a lot of like misleading in the industry. So I don't know, it's one of those things where you really just try to stay in touch with all those people, so that if they have a family member, you can tell them like, hey, don't worry, you enjoyed my transaction. All of that was fine. So I'll do the exact same thing for them.
Yeah.
Especially when they start to notice that you're not playing favorites, that everybody across the board gets the same quality of service. But like for new agents, it's different. For new agents, they're trying to source business, and it's easy. Like, I got into the industry in 2012, and it's, you know, this year will be 10 years, but there's people that got into it like 2-3 years ago, and maybe they do have a huge book of business. Some people start off and they hit the ground and they start running. But for some people, it takes time. It takes 6 months, it takes a year for them to get that first transaction, which is, it's fine. Everyone works at their own pace. But you can't just rely on one person for lead sources.
Yeah.
So then it's a combination of that, and I have to prospect and find new people. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing, because you're doing two things at the same time. You're making all your childhood friends know that everything's great, but you're still trying to make new friends at the same time. So it's kind of tricky.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people say that in real estate, in their experience, most of their clients are strangers or people that they meet after they get licensed, not necessarily from their friends or family.
Yeah, that's common. It's funny, because I work with a lot of people at Compass that have been doing this a lot longer than I have. So it's a great way of finding out all the things that you shouldn't do, because most people are happy to tell you about the pitfalls that they've had. But the first thing that I tell people when they first get into the industry is let it be known to everybody. Let your dentist know that you're a realtor. I mean, you know that your dentist is a dentist. Yeah. Why shouldn't they know that you're a realtor?
How are they going to come to you if they don't know?
Yeah. And you never know where that client's going to come from. I mean, you don't want to base your business off of not knowing where the client's going to come from. You want to have a set plan where you're generating people from a niche or something that works for you. But there's a lot of people that they're kind of like, I don't want to say embarrassed, but maybe that's the word. They're hesitant to tell somebody, hey, I just got into real estate, because they think I'm green. Maybe I should get some sales first and then I can do that. But
there's also some people embarrassed. If I don't make it, now everyone's going to know.
Yeah.
I've heard more of that.
That's a lot more prevalent now, because it's so easy to be a Instagram real estate agent.
Yeah.
That is incredibly common. There's people that you look at and you're like, wow, there's so much business that they're doing. Mm-hmm. But then you look at the post and you're like, wait a second, these are 4 houses that have been posted 16 times, like various different ways.
And how many of those were listed as sold?
Exactly. And people look at that and they are like, oh my God, if I don't have something to post on there, they're going to think that I'm not in business. I've had people actually that I went to my barber recently and I had sold him a property, and he brought up at one point, he goes, I haven't seen you posting as much. Is everything fine business wise? Yeah. And I didn't even cross my mind. I was like, yeah.
Business is so good that I can't be posting because I don't have the time.
It's not just that. It's more of like, I'm one of those people where I'm trying my best to force myself to use social media, because majority of what I am doing is working with clients that are not on social media. They're older. They don't care to be. It's too fast paced for them or whatnot. But
not even Facebook?
I mean, there's a lot of clients that I have that are on Facebook. Yeah. But most of them are like dialing back now. They're like, I don't want to go on there. People are only go on there to argue or, talk about this problem or that problem.
To argue or sell me something.
Exactly. It's not like cats and babies anymore.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, because as much as I don't want to have to always post, hey, I sold this, hey, I sold that.
That's what people are looking for now, apparently.
Yeah. But we talked about earlier, Gary was on here. Yeah. So I sold Gary a property. I don't have that on my social media.
Okay. But he does.
He might. I haven't actually checked to see if it's on there.
Okay.
But there's certain things like if I sell a property that is possibly going to be rehabbed and then put on the market, I don't want to post that. I want to post the end product. So if the end product is 6 months from now, I don't mind waiting until then. But on the consumer side of it, they look at it and they're like, oh, this person's not having a lot of activity. Why don't they have that? So there was a period where I was like, okay, let's post something every now and again. And then I fell into the trap of let's post the properties that we have in escrow too. But in escrow doesn't really mean anything because it hasn't closed yet. Yeah. So it's like, you know, like going on a first date, but you're not married yet. You're like, this could fall apart any moment.
So you don't post them.
Exactly. Yeah. But now I'm at a point where I'm like, even if I don't post it, I'll put up like a story or like a reel or
just to let your followers know that I'm still working in real estate. And if you have any needs, you can still call me. Yeah, because that's where the market is shifting to. So it's like, imagine if somebody said, I only sell cars in my parking lot. I don't have an online forum where I post inventory. I don't have a phone number where people can ask about cars. They're not going to thrive. You have to move with the business and change with the business. And I know realtors, lenders, title reps, a bunch of people that really know how to use the social media tools so well that they're killing it. Yeah, I've heard people selling houses on social media. Yeah. We actually posted that on our Instagram today because I don't know if you know Lillian. She's a realtor. She was on the podcast. So when she told me, she's like, social media is so good. I actually sold a house on social media right in the beginning of my career. And I was so impressed by that. So then I posted that saying, have you ever sold a house? And then 2 of our followers actually messaged us explaining to us how they sold a house on social media. It's very impressive. And I think Lillian, I'm not 100% sure if I'm saying this correctly, but I don't think she met the client until they signed the paperwork. It's possible. Yeah. It's possible. I mean, think about it. There's a bunch of people right now that are leaving California. Yeah. And most people think that there's an exodus taking place, but what they don't look at is California is still in the top 3 states that people are moving into. So somebody from out of state is going to be coming here. Yeah. And they don't necessarily have the means or the time to always fly out, tour every property in person. A lot of times they look at it online. They look at your 3D tour. They look at the floor plan. They ask for a FaceTime tour and then it's sold. Yeah. That happens often. It's a part of the new part of the industry that people are adapting to. And this is after already adapting to the online platform, which didn't exist before, the Zillows and early. And also with the pandemic, a lot more people are jumping on that bandwagon. Before they were like, okay, if I can actually come in, then why not? Yeah. But then now we're more comfortable looking at things online. We're more trusting. Well, we haven't left our houses. A lot of people have stayed at home. We just don't want to leave anymore. And then on the realtor side, we haven't had open houses up until recently. Yeah. So there's people that were like, how am I going to sell this house? If people, so they hosted like virtual open houses. I've actually, with a friend, we were shopping for a place for her in Palm Springs, investment property. Yeah. And, the second I called, when the guy found out where we live, we're in LA, he's like, I'll just go to the properties today and I'll FaceTime you guys. And, I was like, I was expecting that we would actually have to take a trip out there and drive and see everything. And, through FaceTime, they can't really hide too much, maybe in the edited photos online, they are able to make it look brighter, more open. But with FaceTime, you already know, you FaceTime your friends, what their house looks like, what the main difference is. Of course. And you kind of know what it looks like. Of course. So it works. FaceTime it's not going to use a fisheye lens or a wide angle lens to make everything seem bigger, the room's longer or whatnot. It actually does the opposite. It makes it look a little bit smaller. And darker. Exactly. So when you do the FaceTime, if somebody likes it, even in that, you're like, okay, then you're going to love it. For sure have to like the house if they like it in this like terrible setting. Yes. Yep. Yeah. And also, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you found with your clients, if they're looking to invest in the property and not live in it, they're less picky? Yeah. Most of the time when they're looking at it as an investment, they're not particularly picky about cosmetics as much. And by cosmetics, I don't mean like, is the kitchen remodeled? They do pay attention to that, but it's more of like, I wanted a brushed nickel faucet. Not a gold. But who cares if your renters don't have that? Exactly. Yeah. They'll stay outside of their own taste for the purposes of the return on investment, which is fine because that's the way that you're supposed to do it. Yeah. But then there's also situations where they completely just disregard the whole thing because they look at it and they say,
in order for me to reach that type of rental value, I'm going to have to pour X amount into this property to be able to market it like that kind of house. Yeah. And those are the ones
depending on what you're trying to charge.
Yeah. Those are the ones that usually they'll rehab a property, they'll fill it up with the tenant. The tenant is going to pay a really high amount. So then the cap rate goes up to like 5.5%. And then they resell the property as a income producing property to another investor. So they do all the legwork, but then they get a big premium for doing that.
Yeah. So it's the long-term return.
Yeah. You see that more in like the multi-units. Somebody buys a 12-unit complex. They eventually rehab the whole place. They all had window unit ACs. They install central heating and cooling in all of them. Prefab kitchens and bathrooms in all of them. They fill it up with tenants that are paying more than they probably should be. And then now the building is producing a 5.5%, 6% cap rate, which is high. You're not going to see that as often in the marketplace now. But then somebody in Oklahoma sees that and they're like, I want to invest in that. That's a great return for my money. So they don't even come out and see it. They just look at the numbers. They're like, this makes sense to me. And then they invest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes just the number, when you look at the rent price that people are charging, if you live in another state, I know people that live in other states where they're paying like, I want to say like $1,800 for a 2-bedroom house. Mm-hmm. And when they look at condos here, it's like $1,800 for sometimes a studio apartment.
Yeah.
And not a condo, a studio apartment. And it blows their mind. They're like, oh, wow. So I should invest there and I'll make more money out of that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it depends how much you pay for the property though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a building that I used to live in that is a fantastic example of that. I sold units in there in 2015 and 16. It's on Palmer, South Glendale, and Adams Hill.
Okay.
They were selling for like $300,000 to $400,000 each at that time, and the rental value was probably like $1,600 at the time, which is fine for
a 2-bedroom.
Yeah. No, 1-bedroom.
1-bedroom. Oh, even in 2015?
Yes.
Wow.
670 square foot places. They were remodeled, and some of them had in-unit washer dryers. Some of them didn't. Some of them had lofts on the second floor. Some of them didn't. And the lofts sometimes had a half bathroom in there. But I remember I sold one in there for like, I think it was like $430,000. And maybe 3 or 4 years later, I'm renting one of those units for myself for $2,200.
Wow.
And I had talked it down to $2,200. And I looked at that and I'm like, it's crazy.
In a couple years.
The person that I had sold this to is definitely turning a profit now because the HOA was a cheap price. But it was one of those things where you look at it and you're like, 2 years could make a huge change.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens now with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Properties that were selling for like $600,000, $700,000 that had a modest rental income. Now they could make an insane amount of money off of it.
Another thing that I've learned, if you want to find an investment property and if you want to make sure that for sure you're going to make a profit. So I've learned from someone that number one, just something simple we all know. If there's a ton of construction all over the city, most likely it's because they're developing the city. Mm-hmm. They're going to make, I don't know, maybe a mall or something that's going to attract people from other cities to come in.
Yeah.
So then you can charge more. Once people see the city, they like the city, they want to live there, whatever it is. That's number one. Number two, I learned that if you see that a super Walmart, or what are they called? The super centers, the big Walmart.
Yeah.
If they're going to open a big Walmart in your city, then it's because Walmart has had there's this name of this one people scientist. I always forget it, but they have scientists that observe people, and they take a bunch of surveys on not only their income, but how they like to spend, etc. What they're willing to do with their properties in the future, what's their 5-year plan. So they put all this data together just to kind of guess in 5 years, by the time we're ready with our Walmart, who's going to be there? How much can we price things? What brands can we bring to that Walmart? So now knowing they're coming in, if you buy a property there now, most likely in the next 2 to 3 years, you'll make some form of profit. I'm not guaranteeing $500,000.
Look at Burbank. Burbank's a great example of that. The Empire Center going in was a huge boom for Burbank. And Burbank was already established. The Americana for Glendale. But
I think Walmart opened years after the Empire Center did.
It did, but there was a boom that was taking place. Walmart went in, and then there was that huge development that they were doing of mixed use, where they had living, like residential units, and they had storefronts at the same time. And those.
Is it still residential or is it hotels?
I think they might have a mix of them, but I haven't been. So that part of town, I don't have much clientele for, so I don't see it as often. But I'll use an interesting example that is something that has probably only, at least in my experience, I've only seen happen in the last 20, 30 years. There is nothing like that in Highland Park, in Cypress Park, in Mount Washington, in Altadena.
So all of these cities that you're saying, I don't know if it's appropriate to call people hipsters now, but
I mean, it's millennials.
Areas?
It
might be that.
It's generally speaking, I think it's millennials because you look at it and you go back to right after the housing crash. It was affordable to buy a house in Highland Park. It was the kind of place where you notice that the hillsides are beautiful. The location to where you live, like in proximity to everything, is not that far away. Yeah. It's very much like Silver Lake. Mm-hmm. Silver Lake back in the day was more affordable. And then the artsy group purchased properties and they made it beautiful. Yeah. And people started buying up stuff. Same thing happened with Highland Park. Highland Park, houses started getting flipped. But realistically, between like Avenue 46 to like 52, there's not that many new restaurants, shops, developments. It's adding more and more. They're coming in. They're adding like slowly.
But I don't see them opening a Walmart there.
I don't see that happening because it's more of like a craft kind of place. Yeah. People want something that is vintage. They would rather go somewhere.
Local,
yeah, absolutely.
Locally sourced everything.
Absolutely. And
unless they have like a Walmart farmer's market coming in.
Yeah. That same group is actually moving now to like Altadena. We've noticed that a lot of the buyers that we've had in Altadena are coming from further south in Northeast LA. Okay. Like Highland Park, Silver Lake.
Altadena is right below Pasadena?
It's right beside it. So think of like JPL, La Cañada, JPL, Altadena, Pasadena.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just along the foothill, but it's another place that you look at and you're like, okay.
There's some beautiful homes there that really, really desperately need to be remodeled.
There's
huge properties.
There's historic homes there. Yeah. There are homes like, especially homes east of Lake. You'll find houses that are like 5,000 square feet on half an acre of land. And you look at it, you're like, this is a gorgeous, like 2-story Spanish structure. Yeah. But it was affordable when the owners bought it at the time.
And now they can't afford to fix it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Until
I've heard a lot of people complain about the same issue in Glendale, California. Mm-hmm. So they bought their homes, let's say 20 years ago when they immigrated to America. Yeah. And then now their home is worth well over $1 million. And if they have someone come in to fix it up, they're going to charge them how much they basically paid for the home 20 years ago. Yeah. And they are still doing the same job that they were doing back then. So they can't afford it.
I'm an interesting case when it comes to that because I have aside from the inflation that we're going through, aside from lack of supplies because of COVID, the supply chain issues, all that stuff, I also, not to put blame on millennials more, not that we don't have enough anyway throughout the world in general. We do have something that previous generations didn't, which is a little bit frustrating at times for me. Our parents' generation bought properties, and what do? They fixed it up over time. Yeah. We worked on the kitchen. Then a couple of years later, we did the bathroom. Then we did this, and we did that.
And what do millennials want?
I want to fix it all right now before I move in.
It's instant gratification thanks to social media,
Absolutely.
I think.
That's absolutely a huge part of it. Yeah. They want that dopamine hit right now. Yeah. I want to walk in.
It's also because a lot of people love posting when they buy a house. Just everyone celebrate me. And they want to be able to post a house that looks good on social media. Of course. They want to look like those influencers that are posting their homes all day. And recently there's actually a trend, literally over the last week I saw this, where this one girl posted her house and it just looks like a normal house, nothing that like I've ever seen anyone post normally. And she's like, can we start to normalize normal looking houses so I don't feel like I'm living like a freak? She was renting her property.
Sense, yeah.
Yeah. So it's nothing that she can fix, but she also can't afford to do more right now.
See, that's a different part of it. So you look at that and you're like, our parents' generation, why were they okay doing stuff over time? Because they bought a house, let's say in the 90s for argument's sake, for anywhere between $100,000 to $300,000. And a lot of people will say, but do you know what my salary was back then? You know how much money I was making back then? You guys are making so much more, yada, yada, yada. And you're like, okay. If you look at inflation with the way people have been making money, houses still cost way more.
Yeah, for sure.
Than the income.
Well, forget about that. Let's just say they don't understand any of that, because I've said that to a few people and they don't accept it. But also we live differently than our parents did, because our parents could work 24/7, and I'm sure they were burnt out, but they never showed it to us. But with us, once we realize that we're getting to that point, we take that vacation. Yeah. We take the mini vacations, also the weekend getaways, all of that, where to them that's huge luxury.
Yeah.
So that's also
that is a part of it, though, because you want the next generation to do better than you were. And doing better sometimes means that you're not working around the clock. It means that you have downtime to enjoy your life. If you don't enjoy what you do, that is. But there's also the entry level price to buying a house is so high that some people are like, and I think it's completely justified. If I'm going to pay this much to buy a house and then my mortgage payments are going to be that much every single month, I want to enjoy it. I don't want to go to my bathroom and then hate the space that I'm in. I don't want it to be dark. I want it to be nice and bright. I want everything to feel somewhat newer. I want to feel that my dollar is worth what I'm spending.
And if you're putting your entire savings into a house and you're not seeing a chance to get a promotion or move jobs anytime soon, then that means that you actually can't afford to do any renovations in the near future. So you have to be okay with moving into that house the way it is. That's another part of it. And if you're not willing to do that, I can't blame you.
I don't know, it's tough. And with the way the prices are right now, I was actually talking to a prospective client, responded back to a letter I had mailed them for a client that I had that was interested in buying their house. They responded back maybe like 10 days later saying, is this real? I get these letters all the time. They seem like they're, kind of gotcha marketing to see if I can just snag your contact info and then try to annoy you to the point where I sell your house. But I had told the guy, I appreciate that you reached out. We're not interested anymore. You took too long. The clients are in escrow.
10 days?
Yeah.
Wow.
You have to remember, they're not just waiting for those letters that we send out to reach the doors. They're still looking at houses on the market. So they open escrow, they go into a property, and he responds back to me saying, well, I was thinking of selling for that price, but instead I was kind of thinking of maybe building an ADU in my backyard, which is crazy common now. But he also got a quote, I think it was like $280 to $300 a square foot. So his construction was looking at about $200,000
for the ADU.
And maybe 3 to 5 years ago, you could have done that for 125, 150 bucks a square foot. But the cost of everything has gone up so much, both material and labor. But also,
when you look at anything that's considered an investment, they just upcharge now.
Well, everybody does that now. It's bizarre. Like I remember when mid-COVID, there was like an increase in cars because they were stuck at docks. There was lack of cars. And I was like, that makes sense. But then you go somewhere else that's not affected by that. And now all of a sudden that's more expensive. And they're like, wait, you're paying more over there. Why aren't you paying more for me? You're like, because it's supply and demand. The curve hasn't hit your lack of supply to the point where the demand has to cover that. But we still do. So it's like, I don't know. It's not following natural trends of true lack of supply. It's like an artificially suffocated lack of supply, where you force yourself to pay for something, even though you're like, they still have stuff. I know that they have the supplies.
I mean, there's not much to do about it. So, speaking of all of this supply and everything, I start off with the podcast by talking about the client's background, but I feel like we got so much good, talking right before the podcast started, where I completely forgot to do that. But you have such an interesting background because you said that not only were you a carpenter, but you were in the film industry. So let's talk more about that.
I was more of like a stagehand and set carpenter. When I was in, I think it was a year after high school, I went to, for Glendale locals, they'll know El Tap, which is like a taco spot. I was leaving there and I walked across the street to go to my car, and there was a guy loading up boxes in his car. He drops a box, I pick it up, and I'm like, hey man, and I put it in his car, and I asked him, like, what is this place? He said, it's a film studio. I said, cool, are you guys hiring? And all he said was, can you be here at 6 a.m. tomorrow? You
got the job.
Yeah, but I didn't know what I was signing up for. I didn't know what the job was. I just knew that it was a film studio. So I ended up showing up, and they said, I'm going to basically be like a set assistant, like a set worker. I was basically a laborer.
Yeah.
My very first day was installing laminate flooring.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was on a huge sound stage that we installed laminate flooring. And then I worked there, and I worked there for longer. And then I noticed that he needed help building some of the stages, some of the flats that they were using for different productions, because they actually had a bunch of stuff in storage, and people that came by for music video shoots, movies, things like that, they'd pull them out, they would look at them, and if they liked something, we used it. We modified it and we used it for that. So I worked there for a while, and it was interesting because I now maybe 50% of the work that I do is with the clientele that I either met through there or somehow through that industry.
That's amazing.
But it actually helps because I worked on actual houses. I worked on building fake houses. I worked on structures where you understand, like, how does something get made? And that helps us, because I'll go to a property and a client will be like, oh man, I really like this, but I wish I could make the closet bigger. And I look at it, I'm like, well, you can. They're like, how can I can't just move a wall. Like, no, you can. This is not supporting anything.
Wow.
There's nothing in this wall. You can open it, move it this way, move it that way. So it helps in those things, but it's also kind of a curse too, because you got to be cautious with what you say.
What do you mean?
I mean, I can't go into a house and somebody says, I want to open up all these walls.
Yeah.
My response is, you can. It's going to cost money.
Okay.
You can do anything with the house. It just costs more money.
Yeah.
But you should probably get a structural engineer to take a look at it to see if that's going to be safe.
And you're afraid
like,
they're going to take your word.
You know how to do it. Can't you look at it? And I go, no. Yeah. I know how to do stuff that's like on a smaller scale. When
temporary on a set.
Yeah, structural engineers have their licenses for a reason. They have it because it takes that kind of seriousness to know, can this structure support the weight of the roof above it or the second floor or whatnot?
Or God forbid there's an earthquake. You don't want to be responsible for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the benefit of that too is when I work with especially first-time home buyers and they're terrified of, let's say the home inspector said there's no GFCI outlets in your kitchen and your bathrooms. And they're like, oh my God.
What does that mean?
That's an electrical hazard. It could shock me. It could start a fire. We tell them, well, yeah, it can. But those outlets are usually anywhere from $1.50 to $5 per outlet. And you can hire somebody that, like an electrician, sometimes even a qualified handyman can do it. All of this being fixed, maybe you spend a couple $100, maybe $1,000. And they're like, oh, that's not so bad.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, well, the inspector's job is to present to you the seriousness of why you should do it. My job is to tell you guys that it's manageable. It's not something that you're going to have to ask all your relatives and your parents for money so that you can fix this thing. Yeah.
So I bet it also helps forget about once you have the client actually in the home. So I'm sure you work with a photographer or I don't know, a videographer to take videos, pictures of the set. So does that help? Did you kind of get an eye for it?
You see how people were filming properties. You see how lighting affects places, but I wouldn't say as much, because I think the harder part is finding people that you like working with and constantly working with those people because they understand what you like.
Yeah.
There's times where a client will tell me, I really want this picture, and I don't step in their way. I tell them, if you truly want that, I will make sure that that gets taken care of. And we have that shot that you really love. Like, for an example, if you have a client that's like, I love all the fruit trees in my backyard.
Okay.
I want to highlight every fruit tree in the backyard.
Yeah.
Well, then you get pictures of all the fruit trees along with your photography for the house. You get a list of all the trees, all that kind of stuff. Are the fruit trees going to sell the property? Most likely not.
Yeah, it depends who's buying it.
Exactly. There is somebody that'll look at it and they're like, I've always wanted basically an orchard in my backyard. Let's do that.
Yeah.
But majority of the buyers will overlook that because the appraiser
might even remove the trees.
Yeah, because the appraiser in the bank is not going to care that there's fruit trees there. They're looking at it as like, I'm investing in an asset. Do you like the house? Because you're going to be paying for that house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And then for your job, you said that most of your clients are from the film job or the connections you made there.
Yeah.
So I think that's so important to just highlight how important that is, because we've heard a lot of people that have come in, they have such impressive resumes, or like they have, let's say, an impressive education, or before they were in real estate, they were, I don't know, an aerospace engineer, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when you ask them, what's the most important experience that you've had career-wise that helps you succeed today in real estate, they always say what they did when they were 15, 16 years old, the connections they made when they were young. And I think That's because when you're 15, 16, when you're open to taking advice and listening to older people, you also leave an imprint on them.
Of course.
Because when they're helping you, you're more memorable. Yeah. And then once you're in any industry, they want to see you succeed. So they're willing to work with you.
Absolutely. And there's something to be said of, you want to be somewhat relatable. You don't have to be relatable with every single client. There's clients that I've worked with where we don't have anything in common.
Yeah.
The only thing we have in common is they had a need for something that I could provide. That was it. They needed to find a property. I found the property.
Yeah, sometimes that's fine. That's enough.
They need to sell something. I could sell it for them. Exactly. But majority of the people that you're going to get repeat business from, that you're going to constantly work with, are going to be people that you can relate to. I have a friend that was formerly at Compass with us, and he was in the music industry, and he worked with a lot of people in the music industry because they get him. They speak the same language. Yeah. And I look at that and I'm like, I'm never going to be upset that I don't get those clients, because I honestly, I don't even know how I'd appeal to them. But when it comes to helping them with the house process, of course I could help them with that. But there's a lot of people that are like, I don't want to just know that you can sell me a house. You're going to be wearing a lot of hats. You're going to see family arguments inside this escrow process and all that. So
you're going to call me 24/7.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a big part of it.
And then speaking more on Compass, that's the company that you work for currently.
Yeah.
So you mentioned over the phone that Compass has something that no other company has.
Well, the other companies have this similar style product, but it's not exactly the same. Some of them require, and let me explain the product first and then I'll explain. So before I was telling you that a lot of my prospecting tends to go to clients that are, I don't want to say like elderly, but like people like in the baby boomer stage, people that have owned properties for a while. And the main reason why I focus on them is, especially if they don't have the money or the means to fix up their house, I don't want them to just sell. I tell them Compass has this platform where it's called Concierge services, where we can give them a private loan of $75,000, and they have no interest, they have no fees, they have no payments for 1 year. There's no gimmicks to that or anything. It's literally, if you qualify, if you have equity in your property and you're somebody that is not, you don't have 100 mechanics liens on your house or something, we give you the money so that you can fix up your house.
And the only thing that you have to do in return is let Compass sell your home.
Yeah. And a lot of times people say, so you're probably going to charge me an arm and a leg. And we say, no, our commission rate stays the same. They're like, why would you do that then? And we tell them, like I was explaining earlier, if I could sell your house for $1 million now, and by investing $75,000 into it, we could sell for 1.4 because you've, really rejuvenated all the parts of the property that 75 can't always do that, but depending on the property, it could make it appealing enough where you can get enough bids to push it to that price. Then now my commission rate's based off of the 1.4. So I don't have to charge you more. I get rewarded by doing right by you, by getting you significantly more than you were going to get.
So by investing in the long-term plan, you get more return.
Yeah. And that's like, that's not right for everybody. There's some people that are like, look, I just want to move to Texas
right now.
I don't want to fix up my house. I just want to sell it, get the money that I want, go with my family over there, live my life, have a great time. And I go, great. And in a circumstance like that, let's go for as is, clean it up as much as we can, and then sell the house. And then an investor might purchase it, rehab it, and then they reap the rewards of renovating the property, of actually putting the sweat equity into the home.
Yeah. But also just hearing that, you already know the company is not going to cheat you out. They're not just going to get the first offer that comes in. They really want the best, not only for you, but at the end of the day, they're looking out for their own pocket, which means that you're going to benefit from that.
We improve our portfolio of properties that we're selling by always having a nice property that we're presenting to people. And then at the same time, we're providing a service to people that otherwise would not be able to do that. Most people that I go to tell me like, oh, you probably have a list of contractors that you want me to work with. And I go, no, we don't. I mean, I can provide contractors for you if you want them. But if you have people that you're comfortable with that can do the work and you trust their work,
you have
let's
money
go with
now.
them. Yeah, you can cut them the checks and then you can get the work done. We'll guide you on what's worth doing and what's not worth doing. Like sometimes people go overboard. They're like, I want a Venetian plaster every single wall. You're like, you don't have to do that. Like,
so one room's going to cost 75K.
Basically, yeah. Like we tell people like kitchens and bathrooms, that's what sells the house.
Yeah.
Like obviously square footage and lighting and all that is important as well. But
isn't that so weird? Because kitchens and bathrooms, if you think about it, that's the two rooms where you spend the least amount of time unless you're like a chef.
But think about it. It's the two most vulnerable places in your house when you're eating food and when you're going to the bathroom. There's already this psychological thing where you care about that space more because you're actually doing something that's so humanly like intimate.
Yeah.
You're eating food, like you're getting together with your family, you're preparing food. And the funny thing is actually, if the kitchen is close to like a living space, like a living room or a den, people spend more time there than anywhere else.
That makes sense.
My parents are like, we fall into like the typical like Armenian thing of like, we have the formal living room that they never go to. And I tell them all the time, like, you guys spend so much money for this square footage of space and it's the biggest part of your house, but you never use it. They hang out in the kitchen? You hang out in the kitchen and in the den all the time. They're like, yeah, but you know, there's the bar stools and we'll hang out here. I'm like, that's hilarious. Like, why did we get all this space if we're not even going to use it?
Yeah. For me, the way I see it is food and then also going to the bathroom. Those are the two places that you want to clean the most.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So it just looks cleaner when it's nicer.
Yeah.
It might look really, really bad paint job. And even though you might Clorox the entire bathroom 2 times a day, it's going to look a little dirty.
There's only so much modification you can do to like a bedroom.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, it's going to have a bed. It's going to have a couple of dressers. It's going to have nightstands, things like that.
Depending on how big the bedroom is.
Exactly. In most houses, at least. But a bathroom in 90% of houses could be customized so much that it gives people the opportunity to really... You want
2 sinks, 1 sink. Exactly. How many mirrors do you want?
And if you have twins, it's the only time you get to yourself. And you're like, I want this place to be enjoyable. So you have a TV in your bathroom? No. I'm trying my hardest to not even take the phone with me in there. Yeah. Because I'm literally getting to the point where I'm like...
I'll just take a nap in the tub.
It's if your legs are numb, you're spending way too much time in there. Like, so just go in there, do your job, enjoy your time, you know, wash your face, whatever you have to do, and then just go on with your day. But there's so many friends that I have.
Realities of parenthood, especially when you have 2 at once.
Oh yeah, and we haven't even entered the stage. Like, I have friends that have like 2 and 3 year olds that'll text me photos of their kids sticking their fingers underneath the bathroom door or something. God. They're like trying to bug their parents because they're in the bathroom. They're like, we don't even get that time for ourselves.
That's so funny. Yeah, you'll get that soon enough.
Yeah, basically.
Once the kids are much older and you feel too old.
Then it's going to be the opposite. Then we're going to be like, why aren't you guys bugging us? Why don't you guys want to spend time with us?
Come sit next to me.
Why don't you guys want to talk to us? Yeah.
That's so funny.
You always want what you don't have at the moment, right?
Yeah, always. But just talking with you, because I know you were friends with our producer, just seeing the type of people you and your wife are, I know you guys are enjoying every moment now. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. It's funny because there's so many like difficult moments that I look at and I go, you know what? It's a luxury to have this difficult moment. Yeah. It's one of those things where you're like, I'm not going to experience this difficult moment again if we don't have another kid, or if we do, it's not going to be for a while. So while you're in it, just like, you know, own it as much as you can.
And it's because you love your kids. And I think the same can be applied to when you love your job.
They're okay.
They're okay. You don't know them yet. They're strangers.
I don't know their opinions.
That's so funny. Oh yeah. Because nowadays, you know, if we have different opinions, family goes against each other.
I have 2 girls that are twins and so opposite. You could tell that one is completely opinionated on this thing and that thing, which is great because the patience that I have to have for them now is like pouring over into work. Because there's moments where I've been with like, not every client you work with is going to buy something like within a month, 2 months.
So you just have to treat each client like they're your babies.
Kind of. You have to apply the same type of like patience. Because at the end of the day, there's people that like get rushed into situations and then they don't like it and they have to pay for it. Yeah. It's a 30-year commitment. I mean, they could sell at any time, assuming the market's still up, but there's also people that you work with for like 2 years, 3 years. Wow. And they look on and off.
That's a long time.
They look for a little while and then market conditions change.
And you are patient with them the entire time.
Think about right now with the way that the stock market is going. Yeah. There's people that you could have worked with 2-3 months ago, maybe a little bit more than that, when the stock market was still doing really well. Yeah. And they were like, I want to buy a property. I want this. And it goes upside down like it is now. And they're like, wait, I have to pump the brakes.
You can't.
I don't have the capital to liquidate to buy something anymore. Yeah. And that happens all the time. There's people that, you know, their style of income changes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with, like you said, treat your clients like your babies, but also apply everything that you've learned with your kids. You can do the same with your job. And for new realtors, I think we can give them the same advice. So once you love your job, not only will you be patient with your job, but also, just like you said, I just totally lost my train of thought. I don't know what you just said about your babies.
It's okay.
I had a really good point, I promise.
You know, you said something that's really interesting of loving your job. Yeah. There was a very early period when I first got into real estate where I literally was like, I hate this. I don't enjoy this.
Is it because you hadn't made your first sale yet?
No, because then you're trying to justify the means by the end product. Okay. And you don't need the end to actually enjoy the whole ride. Yeah. You want to be able to enjoy the whole thing. But at the same time, I used to look at it, I'm like, I have to make so many calls before I get one person that wants to work with me. Then they call me and they say they were working with somebody else, or they say they saw a property in a different city that I've never been to and they want to buy that house.
And you don't know the city, you don't know what to do, where to go.
But then a little bit of time goes by and you start to figure out the parts of the job that you really love. Yeah. And most people, that's a bad generalization. A lot of people probably think that you have to love every aspect of it, and you don't.
I don't see any job being like that. You don't
love every aspect of being a parent. There's things that you're like, I wish that wasn't a part of being a parent. Like there's parts where you look at it, you're like, I wish I didn't have to have the worries that I do now, because it would have been so much better if I didn't have to worry about, is this the right school? Yeah. Is this a safe neighborhood? All that kind of stuff. I wish that stuff was easier.
But that helps you be more relatable with your client.
Yeah,
because now you know what they're thinking of when they're trying to make this investment.
100%, 100%. And the same thing for your job. There's agents that are like, you know, I hate doing CMAs and pricing properties. I'm like, well, fine. If you're not going to do that, find a team member and ask them to do that for you. Yeah.
Leverage and with team members, I was actually going to ask you, do you think for new real estate agents, do you think it's really, really important to be a part of a team, or is a mentor enough?
It's not necessary. It's not a end all be all necessity. Yeah. But a team is like a steroid injection into your business, because you are a cost to somebody else. Yeah. They want to see their return on their investment of you. So if you start in this industry and you're thinking, I want to do it all myself, I want to build my own name, I want to build my own team, no problem. That's totally fine. Go that path. But you're going to go a lot faster down that road if you join somebody, learn a few things, and then you go off on your own afterwards. I personally, it's funny to say this, in 10 years, I'm still on a team.
Why is that funny to say?
Because a lot of times there's this notion that, why don't you have your own team? And especially in the Armenian community, why don't you have your own brokerage?
Oh, your own business, yeah.
Exactly. But there's one of those things where I don't want to wear every hat. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be, it's like when I'm at home.
It's not going to make you happy.
100%. I can do roofing work. I've done roofing work. Yeah. I have a roofer that I'm going to be meeting with to start work on my house tomorrow. But why? Because if I focus on the things that I'm good at, I can pay him for his time and I'm worth more. It's the opportunity cost of what I'm doing. Same thing with the team. Not everybody is good at lead generation. They should learn it. They should be, very well versed in it, but not everyone's good at it.
And it's important to not be bullied into that position and recognize what you're comfortable doing, because you might be able to become a team leader, and I'm sure you'd be successful, but how much longer are you going to have to work past your comfort zone every single day to get there?
Yeah, there's people that are like, I don't want to have to worry about telling somebody, hey, here are the notes for the open house.
And in a couple of years, you might do it. Possible. Once the kids are older, maybe you'll have more time, and now it'll interest you to have your own team.
A lot of people assume that because you're in a team, a piece of your pie goes to somebody else all the time, and they look at it as like, why don't you want 100% of the pie? Yeah. And I show them sometimes, I'm like, your pie is this big and you get the full thing. Mine is this big and I'm getting a portion of it. So I would rather, there's that,
You're fine.
There's that old saying that, if you want to move fast, go by yourself. Yeah. If you want to go far, go with others. That is a huge deal in this industry. If you want to build, Aaron Kerman is one of the people that I look up to in this industry. He does over $1 billion a sale last year, I think they did like 1.2 billion.
Wow.
He has like 50 agents on his team, maybe less because it always fluctuates.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things
1% of a billion is much more than 100% of 1 million.
Yeah, but they're not all going to get a piece of his business, but it's one of those things where they're learning from somebody that's truly amazing at what he does. Like the guy that I work with, Michael Dilsaver in Pasadena, the guy used to dominate that area. And a big part of why I like working with him is I started to notice like we work similar. Our mentalities are the same.
Yeah.
I want to work with somebody like-minded, and I want to work with somebody that goes at the same pace, cares about the clients as much as I do, all of that stuff. I could go somewhere that's faster paced, that produces more, that's all about the paycheck. But how long can you do that before you're like, this is it, I'm burning out?
Yeah. Money's not always that important. It might be when you're really young, but once you know exactly who you are and what you want in your career, you're going to look past that.
Yeah. It's like that adage, give a man a fish or teach a man how to fish. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, if you can learn how to source your own business, that's way more valuable than relying on somebody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I have so many more questions for you. I feel like we're already going to need to book you on another podcast, but I know that alarm means that one of your clients is waiting for you and we don't want to take up too much more of your time.
That's okay.
No, we have you on the podcast because you're so successful and because we admire how available you are for your clients. So never apologize for that.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming on. And again, we're booking you soon. I'm saying it on the podcast so you can't say no.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Everyone at home, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Remember to subscribe, press the buttons, all the links below. We'll put Daniel's social media below. And just keep in mind, change begins at home. So make that change today.